everybody. Welcome to Sonic Talk, episode 524. Recording today live on Wednesday, the 21st of February. It's been a couple of weeks. It feels like I didn't do a show last week. I feel a little bit underprepared somehow, but I think it's just because we took a couple of weeks off for NAMM. So we're back in. If you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, this is the Music Technology Podcast. We talk about music technology, software, synthesizers, kind of any other kind of stuff, controllers, or standards, all of that kind of thing. So I want to welcome our guests. We'll start with Mr. Yoad Nevo, who's there in his crib. Last week he was just in his regular room, but now he's back in front of his beautiful Neve, his facility in London, where it's very moodily lit. How are you, Yoad? Are you well?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. And so you back on the production gig at the moment? Is that what you're doing there right now?
Kind of, yeah. Production, mixing, but I have a few kind of very unstable plugins that we're developing that I kind of try to incorporate into the productions. I remember to print everything I do with them because, tomorrow they're not going to work, or even later today. So it's interesting.
So, of course, that would only be during the development process. When they finally reach the light of day, they're going to be super stable and all of those things, of course.
Yeah.
I just thought I'd better put that in there on your behalf. I'm the sales guy.
Yeah. No, I'm talking. Yeah, absolutely. It's quite an important part of the developing process because last week I was in Tel Aviv at the Waves headquarters where we developed the plugins, but developing it in a kind of lab environment is one thing, but then actually trying them in the real world is a different thing, and it has to be done very, way before it goes out to testers and things like that. It's
yeah. Well, I mean, you can't exactly. You can't think of everything, can you? And sometimes you just go, "Oh goodness, there's something we missed," and therefore, there's a configuration.
Yeah, but it's usually it's just the bare processing. So it doesn't. I can't show any screenshots or anything like that, but it looks like a page with things. It looks sometimes more like an Excel sheet, right, rather than and it's very unstable and it's very fiddly, and you have to remember there's nothing basically. There's a bunch of numbers, and you basically design the engine and tweak the engine. So I like it.
It's interesting. I guess that's sort of similar to prototyping, isn't it? Because I mean, I've been to a couple of places where I've been called in to kind of hear a synth in development and maybe throw a couple of ideas or thoughts on it. And sometimes what you see is like a circuit board with a bunch of wires hanging out, and it's just sort of balanced on a bit of polystyrene. And you have absolutely no kind of, you've got no sense of what the interface is going to be like. You're just listening to the kind of processing and the sound of it, and there's absolutely no, it's an interesting thing. And I suppose that's the software equivalent. Hadn't really thought about it. I've never seen a plugin at that stage in its career, I suppose. Yeah. But yes, I suppose.
Well, I mean, that's when it actually runs in a DAW. Sometimes I can only run it on PC. Sometimes I can, it doesn't work on audio units. Sometimes, it's like, because it's not a plugin. It's a thing. It doesn't reach the software kind of part of the design. It's actually just a mathematical kind of concept.
Okay.
So. But it's like taking pedals apart and building stuff. Yeah, it's exactly like that. But it's a creative process, and it's really, I'm really enjoying it so far.
Excellent. Well, I'm glad to hear that. And after that introduction, we'll also go to our second guest. It's Mr. NonEric from iZotope TV, live from Berlin, looking very relaxed and I don't know what else to say. How are you? You well? You are looking well.
I'm fine, and just to make it clear, there is hair under the cap.
Yeah. Good for you. It's a rarity.
To get that out of the door, so just make clear, no wrong assumptions here, please. Hi, everybody.
Yes. Hi and hi to you. I guess we didn't see you. We haven't seen you for a while, and I know you weren't at NAMM generally. I suppose it'd be worth starting off with kind of your impressions of that. Was there anything that you saw at NAMM that made you think, "Oh, that's interesting. I would like to have seen that in person," or are you already kind of clear on what was going to be there? And as many of us, we sometimes get a heads up before they actually arrive.
Yeah, that is the general problem with trade shows these days, is that it's most of the products are already announced 2 days before the show, 100 videos online before the show. And so it's not a trade show these days, just isn't a product launch event anymore. And that, of course, for you and I, it makes it a little bit difficult, because we really want to go to a trade show and show some really new stuff. And mostly it's the smaller companies that you're not really aware of, and that you meet at the trade show for the first time. Like, I remember when Peter Neudecker was at the Musikmesse showing Melodyne for the first time, and everybody was going, "Oh wow, what is this?" It was the talk of the show. These days, it's different, I think. What do you think, Nick? I mean,
yeah, well, you still get those moments, but I suppose it's harder to come up to sort of suddenly appear with something that's sort of as I think the Melodyne example is such a it was so radical, and so it was almost like witchcraft. It was just something so completely out of our they did it twice, didn't they? Did it with just the sort of the straight Melodyne where it was changing the notes, but then they did it again with the polyphonic Melodyne, which everybody was
DNA,
even more
the
DNA
stuff,
thing. Yeah. So
great.
yeah, but you don't get those moments so often, I would say. That's fair to say. I mean, people that I guess the kind of if you look at kind of opportunities, the gaps between the things that already exist become narrower and narrower. So finding something that is just so completely brand new is less likely.
Every industry has this progression. At first it's everybody tries everything, is very innovative, and people are trying out different things all the time. And then but after a couple of iterations, it sort of boils down what a car is. It's got a clutch, it's got a brake, and a steering wheel, and the steering wheel is on the left or on the right side of the car, blah blah blah. And so at the end of an industry, after this cycle, the differences, the differentiation between the products becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and people try to innovate because it's so much easier to promote a new product than something that's already established. But it's very, very hard to come up with something drastically new these days.
That's true.
And I think we just have to live with it, and just sometimes I think it's also a problem that Nick, you and I, we've been around for so many years doing this, looking for new products, talking about new products, reviewing. And I think maybe it's for somebody who's just turned 20, this all might be totally exciting, because they've never heard of Autotune or Melodyne, and now they just realize what they can do, and they be really excited, to make music these days. And they don't need a Neve desk anymore. It's just a phone.
Well, yeah, that's true. There is an element of that. That's a good point, though. I mean, I don't know what you think about that. Yeah, I mean, the innovation cycle is difficult, and also I suppose you get the situation where to create something that's innovative requires a larger team of people, so it's much harder to keep under wraps. You're less likely to be one guy who just turns up, "Oh, I thought I'd come along and show you this idea I had," and everybody just goes, "Oh my god, that's amazing."
First I have to say that my Neve can make calls, actually. So
okay, nice joke. I love that.
Yeah.
What's the phone number?
No one seems to. I mean, no one seems to pick up on the other end, but you can make calls with it. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I think it's it kind of relates to what we talked just before the show about having been in the Atari days and multi-track days and all that, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to actually to have been there and witnessed the transition or the transformation to digital, to working in the box, to I mentioned it last time that I was experimenting with, and actually mixing albums with 7 computers because you couldn't run everything and you couldn't do everything in the box of one system. So I had 7 systems all synced together, and it was really exciting. And it seems that it's quite saturated, and we're quite spoiled, and I think that newcomers are a bit are very much spoiled because they just get, there was one guy, I haven't heard it myself, but someone told me that there was a young remixer, is probably 20 now, but he was 17 at the time, and he said to a friend of mine, I work only with analog. I use the SSL plugins, I use the Neve plugins,
Right.
and it's like
It's a different paradigm, I suppose, in many ways. Well,
yeah,
but that's
it's hard
interesting.
it's hard to surprise and be surprised, or be kind of amazed and all that. But
yeah, I take your point there. I mean, I think there's a thing. I suppose that kind of leads us nicely into a first topic, which is this kind of concept of this new modular software hybrid type of thing. And this is a video posted by Loopop.
See something fishy? Well, more than half the modules here aren't really here. If you've been watching this channel, you've seen me go down the slippery slope of modular. But if you ask me what's the one must-have Eurorack module, it's none of what I've used so far. As a matter of fact, I haven't seen this on any must-have lists, but I think that ever since VC VRAC came out, the must-have lists need to change. Because it turns out combining virtual and hardware modules is actually quite simple. You see, modular can be very...
Right, so you get the gist of that. I mean, obviously that's VC VRAC, which starts out as a free thing. I mean, mostly it's case free. There are other flavors of it available, but what's interesting about this is the idea of combining both of these things, because obviously, Eurorack it can do certain things. Certain things sound great. Certain things, you don't really need modules to deal with that sort of stuff. And the idea of being able to create a hybridized system is actually quite interesting, and it seems to be gaining momentum. I mean, we've got obviously got Soft-Tube modular. We've got the reactor blocks. We've got Cherry Audio voltage modular, which is not something that is out yet, but I think that showed up at NAMM. And so there are these abilities to create sort of this hybrid-based system, particularly with the DC-coupled interfaces, the expert sleeper stuff, and various other aspects. Motu do a lot of things as well. I'll just start with you, NonEric. I mean, I know you've not really embraced the modular, though. I can see you have an MS. Is that a 20 or a 10 over there? It's a 20, isn't it?
20, yes.
So
semi-modular, hooray!
Have you looked into the VCV rack sort of whole thing, or systems like that? It is very impressive, I have to say, the way that particular system works. But I don't know if you've exposed yourself to it. If that doesn't sound a bit wrong.
First, I just want to make a quick remark regarding the last topic, innovation. In the old days, one man was able to do the Apple Computer 2. That was Steve Wozniak. So it took only one guy to do a whole computer. Today, you need 2,000 or 3,000 people. I think that's also a point. Once products have become so mature that you need a quadruple amount of R&D to be to make the next step. But on the modular side, I think what is surprising for me is I always thought that the modular the core idea of using a modular system was to be able to turn a knob, use your hands, do all this sort of tactile sort of thing, and fiddle around and have this not being able to save patches and blah blah blah. So it was all a different kind of mindset. So if I start using the Soft-Tube modular, I'm back on my computer with the mouse and blah blah blah. I'm not sure. I think we're trying to go in one direction because we like something like being able to grab a knob, turn it, use a cable, just put it in there and tweak it and just go wild, but in a more physical way. When we go back to using a modular system inside a computer, we're back to the mouse, blah blah blah, this sort of thing, and we lose all that, and we don't really gain sonically much, because let's face it, if you have a UE Bacille, or what it's called, the semi-modular things, you can play around with this stuff. You come very close to sounds that could be from a modular system. So it's not. I don't think it's about the sounds.
It's about the
a general
interface.
listener wouldn't be able to tell the difference. I could create what somebody creates on a Doppler system in my computer, no sweat, but it would be a different way to create, and it's a way to create that is, I think, the core difference between a modular system and a computer.
I would agree. I would come back at you with the notion. I mean, this is where I've found out the VCV Rat or the soft tube modular, which I also enjoyed. The thing that I found that I was doing was, because I've got some modular stuff, I've got some synthesis stuff, I might create a patch on a piece of hardware, and I've got all the kind of joy and of making that patch and creating it in the physical sense, and then it maybe inspired me to come up with some melodies or lines or whatever. But then I sort of think, well, I want to keep that, so that you can, in many ways, you can recreate part of the patch or some of the patch in software, so you can bring it back if you want to, or you could use it as a starting point. And because if you're talking about a hybrid system, you've still got the physical, because the physical is the other part of the system. It just maybe takes away some of the stuff because that you don't need to be bothering with, the recreation, because that's not always. Some of the stuff that you patch is mechanical, it's routing, it doesn't do anything, it just takes from A to B, whereas the things that you maybe got your hands on is the creative part of it.
I mean, there's generally the problem with using a modular system and hardware is, how do I integrate it into the rest of my workflow? So at the end of the day, there will be some kind of computer sitting somewhere at DAW to record. Maybe you need to sync. So in a way, we always have to deal with a hybrid system at the end of the day. So what we've seen here is it goes a little bit deeper, is there's more integration between the software and the hardware, and that can be helpful for somebody who wants to take that sort of sonic experience that he created on the modular and use that in a more traditional song environment or track environment, and at the end of the day it's going to be on some kind of DAW, isn't it?
Yeah, it probably will, unless you record live to stereo. I don't know. Yoad, sorry.
No problem. Just go ahead.
I don't know what you think about this, because I know you've got modular stuff, and you're always kind of saying you don't really get much time to play with it. I don't know if you've experienced some of this in the box modular gear, and the soft tube modular is actually quite intuitive. There are certain, they've still got time to mature, but the notion of a hybrid system seems to kind of have a lot of legs to me.
Yeah, I mean, I've back in the day, I used to use Creamware Scope, which was an amazing system. It was really, really good for a lot of things, but it had a really good modular as well. And so I've messed up with modular on the screen. There's something about it. Obviously there's something about tweaking knobs and patching cables and things like that. And for me, I'm kind of, I see the point in both kind of views, but I like being in control, and I like the I would probably spend more time trying to save presets and trying to automate the way you interfere with modular, and trying to get it to a state where you can recall it and control it. And I'm actually trying to explore things like that. And I want to mention a really cool plugin called the Gatekeeper by Polyverse, which is basically a VCA thing. It's like an envelope thing which you can draw and do lots of shapes, very complex shapes and things like that. And you can run audio through it. But it also generates DC. So that's kind of a way to integrate. That's a neat way for my from my perspective, to interact with Modular, because you can automate or draw the VCA, or not the VCA, sorry, the CV, and so it will run in sync in your DAW and everything, and then make that control your modules. So that's something that I haven't integrated yet. Integrated
It's on the
yet,
list.
To my on the list of things to do. Another thing that I'm trying to incorporate is a way to. I have this MIDI trigger. MIDI trigger thing, which you can run 12 notes and convert them to gates, basically 12 gate signals. And what I want to do is have in my autoload song, in my default setup, 12 different rhythms, like quarter note, 16th, etc.
So like a clock divider, right?
Which run on different MIDI notes, and they're always available. So whenever you hit play, you're already in sync, and you have trigger sources which you can patch in triggering LFOs rather than using envelope generators in kind of loop rather than using LFOs. So things like that, I'm quite into that sort of integration. I'm not sure I would go into that on the screen modular, because it kind of beats the point.
It's interesting you say that, because in many ways modular patches are basically a series. Usually I was talking to Richard Devine about this, and when he creates a patch, he creates just a series of multiple routing paths, and it's just a question of when you bring them in and how you're mixing effectively all of those different routings. So, and a lot of that's to do with clock dividers, and clock dividers, as we've seen, they become a very major part of a modular system. But I mean, you can do the same thing in MIDI as well. So I mean, the idea of having that in a virtual way that maybe goes out into the real world and drives your modulars, so that you can immediately just kind of go, right, I've got this sound that, this is maybe a VCO into a VCF, and I'm just basically driving that rhythm from the kind of the virtual modular side of it. It makes a lot of sense. I can see how that could work. I don't know how you work, NonEric, in terms of musically. I mean, like many of us, that we don't have an awful lot of time, so.
No, John, but my question to you would be, do you feel that that you gain something sonically? Can you get something out of your modular system that you wouldn't be able to get out of
speed of use? That helps to me. That would help the creative process, because I don't end up getting lost in modular time, because I've already got like a bunch of things that I can just kind of go, okay, this is the software part of it that is synced to whatever session I'm working on. I can plug in the analog things, and they will already be kind of working at the correct tempo with the correct clock divisions, that I can then mess with the sonic side of it with greater ease. Because figuring out how to do that in a patch, or maybe having to throw even more patch cables at the system, is a slow process.
Is your gain that you think you can get different sounds out of your modular system, or is it just more fun to get the sounds out of the modular system? I mean, I'm trying to find the point where if we start to get all the organization, all the management, like we now know how we can do it in the DAW. You just load up a project and you're ready to go. You got all your defaults ready. Everything is nicely organized. You can save it, recall it anytime. And now you're trying to do that with your modular stuff.
Only partially. Only partially. I don't see the difference between that and starting as at a preset. It's kind of like you're flipping through presets when you're playing on a synth that isn't modular, and you just go, oh, that's where I'm starting, and then you're off on the front panel, turning it into something else that fits the moment that you have. And
you're doing that because it sounds better. Does it sound? I mean, sonically. I mean,
I don't think that matters.
No, okay.
Weren't you just advocating the process rather than the result? So
yes, I was, and I was trying to find out whether you're trying to manage the modular because of the experience, not the sound.
Because I want to use it. I would rather use something physical. That's the thing, I think, anyway. But yes, I just come back. I did meet Loopop at NAMM, actually. Really nice bloke. In fact, Yoad, I think he's from Tel Aviv. I didn't do that thing is like, oh, do you know Yoad? Because he's sometimes in Tel Aviv. I didn't do that. You know, it's like when you meet people from another country and they ask you, do you know some random person that might be in a population of several million? Just like to say, I didn't do that. But yeah, lovely bloke. It's an interesting idea, and I think that it's got a lot of legs, and I think the fact that the VCV rack has come out and is so available. I mean, some of the things that are really cool about it are the fact that you can have multiple audio interfaces in the same patch. So you're not, you know, when you're in the DAW, you're often, you know, without aggregating, you don't tend to get individual access to individual audio interfaces so easily, and that's the thing that I kind of interested. You can have dedicated things for CV, you can bring things back in, you can control, you know, there's a lot of, I think there's legs, and I detect that maybe you're skeptical and you don't necessarily have so much of a use for it, you know, in the situation that you're working in. So, you know, maybe it's just for my scenario.
Most probably. I did a 10 part video series with the guys from Schneider's Laden here.
Yeah.
And we built a Euro rack, and it was all fun, and I played around with it for a couple of days after we assembled it, and I thought it was okay, but I didn't get a hard on just, you know, from the sound and from the sounds. I thought I could maybe, because I'm more of a conventional musician. I used to be a trance producer and a punk guitarist, so my level is low. You know, I just need some basic good sounds, and so for me it was. I thought it wasn't worth the trouble.
I don't know. I know. Yeah. What do you think? Because I mean, in some ways, what this is enabling, in many ways, is people who maybe aren't getting into modular because they feel it's impossible to apply to their workload, to their workflow. Something with this level of integration might make them think, well, actually, I can see how now I could use that in my workflow, similar to what you were saying with your sort of your trigger matrix.
Yeah, I think that that people, it definitely helps people venturing into this world of modular without spending too much money, which is a factor as well. Because if you want to have a system which is half decent, you have to spend several thousands of pounds, and then you know, and like NonEric said, it depends on what you want to do with it. So I treat my system, because I'm not into kind of watery, ambient, self-evolving, constant looping, random, ethereal kind of sounds and sonics. I'm more into bass lines and things
melodic
like that.
parts,
so for me,
yeah.
it's just
yeah,
it's just another kind of source of. So it's like the 101 that I can use for bass, and it's just another thing and it doesn't really matter whether it's analog or digital as such, but it just, for me, it's an instrument to get inspired by, and to stumble upon things that I wouldn't otherwise, or with plugins, because it's just a different experience. And but I can see how this could really lure newcomers into this world of modular, and I'm sure it will lead to very interesting sonic results, and incorporating it within different genres of whatever music.
I think that's.
You know.
I mean, I think that's all we can hope for, really. That, you know, that more tools, not always great, but, you know, things that you can make that are unique, which you can with modular, means that you know, there may be some unique stuff. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I'm just going to bring in a message from our sponsors. Of course, this is Ozone, iZotope Ozone, long-time sponsors of the podcast. You can win a copy of Ozone 8. Well, there'll be details at the end of this. Very powerful mastering setup with intelligent databases and artificial intelligence that basically allows you, or machine learning that allows you to kind of start with a point, tell it where you want to go, and it'll give you some suggestions that are really kind of unique to the audio material that you put in it and where you want to end up. You've got tonal balance control, which is in the advanced version, which allows you to kind of visualize a lot more clearly the frequency areas of a mix and where you're aiming for, but gives you a lot of latitude, so you're not aiming to kind of do an exact carbon copy. And it also allows you to be able to control other instances of Ozone 8 and also Neutron 2 within the same DAW document, so you can kind of work on the mastering phase while tweaking the individual tracks at the same time. Very powerful stuff. We've also got the ability to compare up to, I think it's 10 tracks, so if you're looking to kind of get in the ballpark for something, you can A/B with level matching, so you can get a really tight and easy way to listen to specific regions of different songs, just to kind of see how close you're getting to your target sound. I mean, it doesn't have to be just for mastering. You can use it for EQ, single track processing, loads and loads of different ways to use it. So if you want to check out Ozone, it really is a very powerful way to work on your mix with all those extra visual tools. It also makes it a lot more careful, a lot more easy to use. So iZotope.com/Ozone will get you there. You'll be able to download a working demo. I think it works for about 10 days. There's also a whole ton of tutorial materials to show you how to get the most out of this stuff. Well worth checking out. Once again, we thank iZotope for providing the prize for this week's competition. Thank you very much to them indeed. So don't forget iZotope.com/Ozone. And of course, we've also got the competition. Last week we asked, well, I was a bit unprepared because I didn't have it, but we have a winner. The winner of last week's competition was someone called @DisplayStudios. That's their Twitter handle. So if you want to get in touch @DisplayStudios, you will be the recipient of a fully working and a fully authorized copy of Ozone 8. And we've got a competition this week. We're looking for the hashtag master and deliver. Which obviously is the process, as you deliver it to various platforms. You can master for MP3, you can master for, Final Master, all sorts of ways of doing it. So we're looking for the @master and deliver, hashtag master and deliver, one word, and the hashtag Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's master and deliver, one word, and Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. And once again, we thank them for their continued sponsorship of the show. Right, I'm going to go straight into the other big news, which has been lurking and has really hit the mainstream media. This is the news of Gibson kind of facing some fairly serious financial difficulties, and it's looking like they may not be able to make their loan repayments, and who knows what's going to happen. And it seems almost inconceivable that such a massive and long running brand, I mean, we're talking, I think it's 116 years they've been going. It's an epic kind of sort of seismic shift in the industry. I mean, this could be, I've heard stuff on national radio, national TV, people talking about it and how how could this happen? All of these things. I'm going to come to you first, Yoad, because I know you're a guitarist. I don't know if you own any Gibson products or whether it's, because it was a very aspiration. I mean, the quality and all of those kind of rock gods and icons over the years, they're the people that you would be kind of going, I want a guitar like that because then I can be that person.
Absolutely.
I mean, this just seems almost inconceivable, doesn't it?
Yeah, I started my way as a guitarist on a Strat, but I own several Gibson guitars, and I think that something like that shouldn't be allowed to happen, whether it's by the state or whatever, or that should. It's an institute. It's an American institute, and it shouldn't be allowed to go under, because it's just. I don't know. It's part of our existence. It's
like the language of rock and roll, isn't it? Really, I mean, and therefore music as a whole.
Absolutely. I can't imagine Gibson stop. I just hope that they will recover or get. I don't know. Get the finances or whatever they need to keep on building those amazing guitars. And it's not only guitars; they have quite a few interesting products, and they actually contributed quite a lot to digital networking, digital audio networking, and things like that. So they actually, I think, pretty much paved the way for digital audio networking back in the.
Oh, really? What was the technology?
And
what was the technology that they were put?
I don't remember. I don't remember, but they did have like an audio network, and and yeah, it was very interesting. So it's not that, it's they have obviously the guitars is the thing that they're known for, but it's a major, I don't know.
It just
I
seems
hope
like
that they will,
a real cock up. I mean, that's the thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, because
Absolutely.
let's not forget. I mean, they
Absolutely.
started out. I mean, obviously, when you've got the guitars, but before that, it was kind of Woody Guthrie, it was mandolins, it was banjos. Some of those early products are iconic in American folk music history, and it's just astonishing. Non-Eric, I can see you have is that a real Les Paul, or are you just pleased to see us?
It's a real Les Paul.
Les Paul, lovely. So I can see you're. There we go. Nice.
Les Paul standard.
Gold
yes,
top.
it is. Not gold top.
Oh,
some sort of cherry, whatever. I used to be an exclusive Fender. Oh, wait.
Yeah, I can see that. Is that a Fender? I can't tell if it is or not.
No, it's an Ibanez.
I was going to say. It's a Fender type shape.
One of those early 70s copies of the Fender from Ibanez, which they weren't allowed to sell after some point. I think after 78 or something. So this is a 76 Ibanez.
Wow, cool.
But on the topic of the Gibson thing is, I mean, Gibson is a brand, but also a conglomerate of many companies, and it's kind of, I think this is a typical situation that we've seen happening in the music industry in the last 5 to 10 years, especially since money has become so cheap. There's been a lot of investment companies investing into music companies. We've seen it all over, and from this sort of I think Gibson is more than just the guitar brand. We know there's a couple of companies behind it. You remember that they bought Oberheim some time ago, 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
Yeah, and presumably sold it to Behringer recently.
So there's more to it than just, there's a guitar, there's this traditional guitar company going under. No, it's a company, an investment company that has invested in products, in companies, in whatever. We don't even know what is going on behind the scenes, and they kind of sort of screwed up. Not screwed up because people are not buying Gibson guitars anymore. I think they've probably mismanagement of some sort and investment into maybe brands that didn't work. I don't know. But I just know that it's more than, there's a guitar company going down.
Sure.
No, it's a big structure of many companies, investments going here. We don't know what's going on. And as we know that, is it AKG? Got bought by Samsung. So there's a lot of money coming into our industry from other sources, investing, buying companies. Then there's still the label, the name is there, some of the engineers are still there, but it's something different. And when we think of Gibson and we look at the Les Paul and the mandolins and the tradition, and then I think that's already gone 20 years ago.
Maybe so, yeah. Maybe so. It's the vintage stuff. I think that's interesting though, because I mean, I have quite a strong belief. We've seen it in a number of companies that once they bring in the kind of management consultant and the investment, and they start to bring in the sort of CEOs that are used to working in Fortune 500s, and they're looking to kind of the exit strategy and all of that. It doesn't work in the creative industry because there's a different, and it's a really weird dilemma, because what presumably is happening is you get money guys who probably want to be doing something a bit more interesting. They've made a load of money. They're not interested in stocks and shares and, futures and stuff like that. They want to do something a bit more funky. So they think, I'll invest in the creative industry, in the music industry. I want to be part of this rock and roll thing because it makes me feel a bit more interesting than my run-of-the-mill boring banking job. So there's the allure. I mean, obviously there's the notion that there's profits in it as well, but I think not always. And I think that's the part of the problem. What tends to happen is they then get applied because they think, I need to now apply this is how we do it in the in the whatever the industry is that I'm involved in before, whether it's, you know, loans or whatever. And it really is completely incompatible with creative industry. And you know, I'm guessing, you know, for instance, Yoad, I mean, you know, we were talking before the show started that the notion that, you know, when did a software release ever meet its deadline? You know, in terms of having banking investment and high level that sort of thing just shouldn't, you know, there's no kind of way for them to deal with that, because it's like, well, hold on, the spreadsheet says this, we need to do X or Y, and you end up with massive compromises being made and things going out before they're ready because they have to hit whatever, because a loan is due or there's a dividend or whatever, and it really ruins everything, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been fortunate enough to work on Waves products, and it doesn't quite work that way on Waves. And you know, a product is released only when it's ready, regardless of whatever pressure and financial kind of considerations and things like that. But yeah, it's true that Gibson is a total different beast. It's a huge company, and the money, you know, just imagine how many guitars. Nevertheless, the other things that they deal with, but just guitars. Imagine how many of those they flog daily, and they own Epiphone, and it's a different type of beast entirely. So Waves, as much as it's the biggest, I suppose, or one of the biggest music software companies, it's still a tiny boutique company in comparison to Gibson or the other kind of beast. So it's a different, you know,
yeah,
different thing
it's just
entirely.
sad. I think it's just sad, and it just feels like, you know, we saw the same thing happen with Pro Tools and Avid. You know, they got the money people in, and the money people did all the dividend, and it just sort of, you know, all the people who were coming up with the innovation got sacked. And it was all kind of it all goes a bit wrong,
Yeah.
I think. And I just that people seem to not learn. I can't think of any. I mean, I suppose there are instances where it does work, but, you know, it's like Yamaha investing in Steinberg. You know, that works because Yamaha are a music and creative company as well as the many other things they do. So they sort of understand the paradigm a bit better than, you know, Acme Holdings, you know.
Yeah, you can say a similar thing about Apple and Logic, which in the beginning it seemed okay, and then with the release of Logic 10 or Logic X, it was horrible. But now it's been back on track for a while now, and it's quite good. Although they you know, they have to deal with a lot of pressure from Apple in the kind of GarageBand arena and iPads and things like that, but they still kind of hold their ground in terms of innovation and kind of bread and butter and stability and new features. And so yeah, I
No
guess it depends
iWorks.
on who. Sorry.
Not like what they did with iWorks. They just programmed it once and then it just never got updated. Or Pages or whatever. You know, there's a couple of Apple products that
Yeah,
are not,
well, as with ever, I suppose.
sorry
you know.
for interrupting.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I think you're right. Yeah, I mean, I think it can be done. It can be done, and it just obviously is harder than we must imagine. You know, because it's just people don't seem to get it right very often, I suppose.
Yeah, I you know, I work in Waves and for Waves, which is kind of relatively large organization in the kind of software manufacturing arena. But I'm glad that I don't have to. In my business, I employ a few people, and I have a studio, and I have a lot of expenses. But it's nothing in comparison to what you have to deal with when you run a company of, I guess there's 250 people at Waves or something like that now. So it's crazy, you know. It's so many people that you're responsible for their livelihood, and they have families and this and that. So anything that goes wrong, you're responsible for so many lives. You know, it's not just whether you're gonna the song you're working on now is gonna become a hit or not. It's different type of and scale of considerations and
and then you're worried about the finance, managing the finance and shareholders. I think that's where it becomes difficult as well. I mean, because then you've got to fulfill dividends and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I think we should go for something completely different now. So how about something like this? This might seem like a thing from Nightmare.
One of these somewhere deep down in a basement in a cardboard box, probably still talking to itself. But maybe there's a use for these annoyingly endearing little creatures. What about Furbies on a stick? Nah, that ain't quite it. What about a Furby picnic? There's got to be more uses than that, surely. Well, for the past few years, I've been dreaming up of a machine that will finally give these tragically discarded little dreamboats a use. And here's a concept picture from a tragically
I'll
discarded
fast forward it
little
so we can
dreamboat.
hear what it actually ends up being. So there we have it, the rather unlikely Furby organ. And I know that Furbies have long been sort of circuit bent. I remember there was a podcast we did some time ago where Mark Tinley was talking about he was circuit bending as Furby, and they often got into that. And we were talking about these kind of mad individuals just doing what they felt like. So there you go. NonEric, there's an example of something that will never ever see the light of day apart from maybe an art piece. I can't imagine how much work, I can imagine how much work and stuff went into it, but isn't that what we're looking for? These kind of individuals who are slightly mad, slightly annoying, but are just going to do something that you just go, oh my God. And that has, again, hit mainstream media. 2.5 million views on that video. He's really hit that. I hope he monetized it, because it must have cost him a fortune to make. Yes. Okay.
Yes. Very, very funny. I love all this stuff. I think it's a great viral video. And Nick, we should come up with more videos like this. Get some more views. What do you think?
Yeah, I would. I would
Let me
concur.
see what I've got stuck in the cupboard somewhere here. Weird. Maybe. Yeah, it's always great to have these sort of web pics, where you find something and doing something really weird. Fun. But
I think it's interesting. Well, Look Mum No Computers had a history that, he did the synth bike and various other things, and the 100 oscillator bank, and there's a whole bunch of things that he's done. So it's all tied. He's figured out a way to tie it in with his love of music technology and to be able to do this stuff. And I think he got picked up by Red Bull and got sort of sponsored by it. So his creative mind is being kind of is being, I suppose, monetized. Maybe he's figured out a way to earn a living out of it, and that would be great. And it's something different, isn't it? It's not just another house beat. It's actually something completely different, which I think has got to be a good thing.
It is.
Excellent.
I give it a like. Give it a like.
Yes, I know what you mean.
I will give it a
thumbs up. I really like what he's doing, and the 100 oscillator thing was crazy, and not any less kind of ambitious and crazy. It's like saying to people, well, you wanted analog oscillators and you're thinking about, this synth only has 2 oscillators and this one has 3. Well, here's 100. Let's see what we can do with that. It's kind of so over the top and so ridiculous, but he puts so much time into it. I follow his channel, and it's beyond entertaining, because I think it's quite educational as well for people who again don't have experience in analog and kind of all that aspect of it. So I think it's great. I'm personally, yeah, exactly. The Furby thing is not my kind of thing, but I can yeah.
It's actually quite terrifying, isn't it, when he gets it going?
yeah, exactly. I was
demonic.
When I saw it, I was thinking, oh, those poor creatures. It's like it's
like a cat organ. Yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of, for me, this one specifically was slightly over the top but I like what he's doing. I think it's
interesting. He does post a lot of the kind of work in progress, and he sort of says, this is how I figured out how to do this. And so, you can get, and that's the thing that's interesting about it. It's sort of, there's an element of this exploration and this kind of this is what I'm trying to figure out is how to do this, and but also he creates a dialogue because people kind of go, oh, have you tried this, and so he's going to get. Okay. So I mean, I don't think he managed to actually circuit bend the Furby so that literally a key makes something happen. There's a couple of Arduino boards per Furby, and one of them is dealing with some of the singing parts. He couldn't actually get them to. He couldn't hack them in a way to make them sing particular notes. So the notes are coming from the other bits. So it's a little bit, not quite.
So there is more to the channel and to the guy than just the video. There's background videos. There's more content. How he does it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
You should definitely check it out.
I think I give him a sub.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
I actually would maybe give him the title of the audio MacGyver, because I don't know if you saw he built like drum pads out of aluminium foil and glue and things like that. So he kind of does something from nothing, which is I think is quite remarkable.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's he started out. I think the synth bike was the sort of where he really sort of hit the big time. And I think we shot a video. Our guy Ed shot a video of the synth bike too. And when we were at, I'm trying to remember the name of the conference now. It was in London last year, and he had the 100 oscillator synth there, which was quite hard to figure out because all it takes is somebody to come up and move all the knobs, and you trying to get them in some form of detune unison is almost like a day's work. But that's the parody of it, isn't it? It's not supposed to be something that you would necessarily use unless you know what you're doing.
I think that it's like painting the fence of Regent's Park. It's constantly being painted, because by the time you finish it, you have to start all over again. It's like tuning those 100 oscillators, because by the time you finish, they all drift. And so you have to start all over again.
Now there's the ultimate modular process, Hans. How about that? That would be totally it, wouldn't it? No.
And it also works because it's a great presentation. Let's not forget it. I mean, it's a great idea and it's a great gimmick, but the guy is also a very, very good presenter. He presents it really well. It's really sort of funny and it's great.
Enthusiastic. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Has anybody got time for one more, or have we got to get off? I just wanted to cover these the voice-controlled spot effects, which I thought was actually really cool. Did you see this thing? If I press play, is everybody okay for it? Here we go. This is Krotos Audio Reformer. I'll let it play. It's only a minute long. I think perhaps you get the idea. Basically, the idea of this is it's a free plugin that you get called Reformer, and then you can buy or subscribe to a whole bunch of different libraries, and the libraries allow you to take either live audio or recorded audio, and so you can spot, say, if you're doing Foley or whatever. This is how many Foley artists work. They'll work to picture, and you can see there was a video that went out recently where there's a couple of people and they're all sort of scrunching cloth and walking on gravel and stuff, and it sort of takes that physicality of being able to sync to picture, but then you just apply the library to it and you've got various synthesis aspects to it, and it just seems like a really great idea. You can use your voice. I mean, you also saw people there kind of making lion roars and all of that sort of stuff along with to picture, and then you can use the beast library or whatever it may be to then revoice it effectively or reform it, which is kind of, I guess is why it's the reformer. I don't know, Yoad, I don't know if you do any sort of stuff to picture, or maybe you've worked with people who do.
Sometimes,
and it's a very involved process. What do you think of this?
I think I think I would like to try it. I don't quite understand how it's implemented. When you see those promo videos, sometimes you think, oh, it's great, and then I have to experience the actual thing and see how it responds to the voice and how it actually works, whether it's mapped and all that. But it seems quite impressive. I have done it before, and I know that a lot of Foley artists and sound designers actually use their voices in order to because sometimes when you see this plane or something and you want to do like, it's just easy to do it. You just it's done. You do it and it's done. So if you can record that and manipulate that, sometimes it's better than trying to find the right sound effect or this or that. And so I think if it actually works, then I think it's very interesting. I don't know how rich and how diverse and detailed is their library.
There's a bunch of things here.
Yeah, but not too many. So I don't know. I would definitely like to explore it. It seems very interesting, and it can be really a really cool tool for music creation as well. I mean, I just have to say that once, a very long time ago, I actually recorded drums using the AMS, the RMX 1580 with a kick drum on one channel, sampled kick drum, and a snare sampled on the other, and basically just hit a chair with two SM57s, triggering each one of the channels. So it's the physical element of kind of doing stuff like that. I really like it, and I'm very interested to actually get my hands on it and see how it actually works.
Yeah, I think we're trying to get a review sorted out for that, because I think it just looks really interesting. I know, NonEric, this is kind of almost goes back to the kind of the idea of making the process easier, being able to do. I mean, because Foley work and placing footsteps. I mean, it's a mind-boggling. If you don't know what you're doing, it's a nightmare. I mean, it just because you go, here's 5 steps, and you just go, oh, they actually sound like 5 samples, and I can tell them up. It's really hard to do.
Like a typewriter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We just, I think in one of my recent podcasts, Mark talked about it. He's also doing a lot of music for films and commercials. And he said, if we have something really simple, we can use a sound library. We go into the sound, find a sample and try to use it. But if it's something more elaborate and more important.
Oh, I think your mic's gone. Oh, what about that? He needs a new battery. We'll come back to it quickly. I tell you, one thing that I really like about the idea of this is because you can use movement and articulation to create those things. And I have there's a bunch of videos of people looking at it and showing how to do things. And you do get all of this sort of the ability to modulate envelopes and create variations. So, you do these sort of footsteps and stuff, and you can create round robin, or you can create variation. It's very similar in many ways to the way that the games work, the game engines work. You might end up with 10, Foley samples, but what they do is they create sort of automation, almost that like what would you call it? It's like parameter locking. So each time this happens, there's a different set of parameters. So that same sample doesn't sound the same. So you end up with the kind of that situation. And I think I think you're right, Yoad. It's like, how instantaneous is it? If it's really instantaneous, then it makes a lot of sense to be able to do it just viscerally like that, rather than programmatically.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. I'm very interested to watch your review, and maybe I'll download the demo and see how it works.
So we've got, I think there are some free libraries you get with it to get you going. Look, we've got some plugin. Oh, look, that looks like the old gig. Wow, that's a fresh one. Whoa, it's coming out of the bag and everything. Have we got him? Not yet. Okay, this is some live patching here. It's fascinating, folks. I'm sure you'll agree. Let's go to the 4 shot, and then we can keep an eye on things. And then when he comes back into the picture, his audio will come back.
1, 2, 3, check. Hello.
There we go. We have you. You.
That's why I like analog. That's why I like cables. That's why I hate anything with a battery in it and Wi-Fi or Bluetooth or WLAN or whatever. I hate it. Back
Don't-
to the SM58.
Don't get me started on Bluetooth. God, it's just a non-functioning technology as far as I can say.
And
Anyway,
it's quite interesting actually to discuss this because I'm using the new Sennheiser AVX here, and they're great because they're really compact, really small, great. You can put it to your DLSR, to your photo camera and whatever, because it's very small.
what is it? Sorry, what is it?
Pardon?
What is it? I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's a what's it called? Radio
it a-
mics.
Oh, radio mics.
Mic receiver. This is
Okay,
a small radio mic receiver,
got you.
and it's nice because it's really small. And the only problem is that it doesn't have standard batteries, and that also goes for the radio mic that I've used. And so they just released the old versions again with the batteries, because in these cases you just go to the next gas station, get some batteries, and
Yeah,
and with this on, I'm out of luck, and so I have to go back to the trusted cable.
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I mean, when we buy radio mics, this is getting a bit off topic, but when we buy radio mics, we use the I can't remember what they are. I think they're Samsons. I can't remember what they are. So that's terrible. But they've got the receiver packs have got massive batteries in them, and they are rechargeable, but they last all day. But the body packs have got double A's in, and I always prefer that because once you're done, it's like, well, unless I buy another one and just pair it up, it's ridiculous. So it makes a lot of sense.
Always somebody who forgets to
Charge the batteries.
Charge the batteries, or you left them on because it always happens all the time. And if you just can change the battery with a standard battery, you just go out and buy one, put it in, and off you go.
Exactly. I would totally agree. So there you go, kids. There's a lesson learned right there. So it's back to the fifth. Now you're really looking like some kind of like urban rapper.
Hey man.
Yeah, mic drop.
Who's got to smoke, man?
Yeah. Don't say anything, you'll ruin it. Just stick with the way it looks. So anyway, yeah, the Krotos audio is worth checking out. This is Reformer. It's if I go to the web page, like I say, it's a free plugin. It's VST AU AAX, and you get a Black Leopard sound library, which may or may not be something you specifically need. But if you didn't, then you can also buy the individual libraries, various different. I think they start about £12 and they go up to about 36. But you could buy the whole lot, in various different bundles. So you've got things like.
If it works, it's great.
Yeah, exactly. It just, if it happens, I suppose the thing is like if it doesn't, and how many libraries are they releasing? Because I mean, I could see this easily becoming a standard. I mean, I guess Foley people might be a bit cheesed off by it, but lots of people can't afford Foley, or don't realize they need it, and then it's like, oh, what do I do? I wonder if it's a bit too democratizing of a specialist skill, but it seems like very brilliant technology. So I think. Maybe that's it for this week. I wanted to slip that one in just because I know we've hopefully got a review coming up on that soon, and I wanted to give it a bit of a heads up.
And we had the radio mic accident.
Yeah, exactly. So we've covered a lot of ground. So, NonEric, what's coming up on your channel? What's the next thing for people to look out for?
Okay, today we released a very brief 45 minutes comparison between Ableton Live 10 new version and Bidwig 2.3. They're both clip-based.
Battle of the Clip Doors. Yeah,
the Battle of the Clip Doors just released today, and on Monday I think we're gonna have. I'm not quite sure yet.
Okay, can you give us a kind of how did they fare against each other? I mean, obviously one's at version 10 and one's at version 2, so I suppose that might have been a factor, right?
Basically, if you're more into customization, if you want to do your own sounds, you want to go dive deep into yourself, into the software. And create your own sounds with this new synthesizer, then you're better off with Bidwig 2.3. But if you're more a preset guy and you say, oh, I'd rather rely on a huge library, a big community, lots of tutorial videos, lots of work has already been done for me. If you're that kind of person, you should go for Ableton.
Right. Well, that sounds like a good top line, but well worth checking out. Anyway, thank you very much for that. NonEric, we'll see. Well, I'll go to Yoad. Thank you also for joining us, Yoad. It's been a pleasure as ever. I'm very pleased you can make time for us. What's your? Is there anything? I always ask you this, but I never know whether you can actually tell us anything that you work. Is there anything? Okay, what have you worked on? What was the last thing you worked on that was released that people can listen to? How about if we go that way?
Well, the last thing we released was the Chef's channel, which is I think it's really good. Yeah, there's a few things that we're working on. Like I said, we've been working on this thing, which I can't really say what it is, but we have been working on it for, I think, over 2 years now. So hopefully when it comes out eventually, and I'm not going to even discuss the, deadlines and things like that.
Okay.
Not even gonna
Lesson
try
learned.
to attempt to. But hopefully it will be worth the not the wait, because no one knows it exists, so no one is waiting for it. But I think hopefully it will be worth the wait for us and the effort that we put into it. But it's yet to be seen.
Well, we'll look forward to that. How about from your musical repertoire? What's your last release that you could talk about?
Working with a band called Off Bloom at the moment. Really, really cool band. Doing some other stuff, which funnily I can't disclose as well, because it's not only the software kind of side of things that is kind of secretive. But it's hard to talk about stuff before it gets released, because
Sure.
you're
not in control of the final release date and the presentation of it and all that stuff.
Exactly. My work kind of ends once I do the fade out. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, a lot of interesting things are happening, and it's very exciting still.
I learned
Excellent.
something today, Yoad. How is it pronounced correctly, please?
Yoad.
Yoad. I learned today that even in 2018 there is a fade out.
No, I do this because that's how I used to do it. Now it's more like this with the mouse, but same thing.
Same thing.
We used to love to do that, in the studio. Just now we have a fade out. Okay, let's do it. Oh no! Try again.
Yeah, got to do the whole thing. I remember that. Yeah, the fade out to your DAT machine. Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
The good old days, or maybe not. Who knows?
Exactly.
Well, chaps, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much, NonEric. We'll see you again soon. I hope very much. We'll probably see you in Berlin, hopefully in May, where if not before, obviously online. Yes. Where a super booth. I don't know if you'll be at Music Messe. We'll be at Music Messe, but I don't know whether you will or not. You may be there for an hour or two. Who knows? And also, thank you very much, Yoad Nevo, for joining us too. That's it for this week. It's been a pleasure. And just to quickly remind you, if you want to enter the competition to win iZotope Ozone 8, we're looking for the hashtag Master and Deliver. Sounds like a kind of highwayman, but it's very appropriate. Master and Deliver, one word, and Ozone 8 to @Sonicstate and @iZotope Inc. That's a Twitter competition. Just tweet that, Master and Deliver, Ozone 8 and iZotope Inc. at Sonicstate. Gosh, I'll get it out in the end. Anyway, you know what I'm saying because you're watching the video. That's it for this week. Thank you very much. We'll see you next time.